Wow, the day is almost over. It's almost over. So if everyone wants to grab a seat, we're going to kick off kind of our grand finale. We started this last year, and we had raving reviews about the panelists. So we're going to have a group of leaders come up here and talk to us about some of their ideas and some of their plans and what they're going to do in the future. So to lead the panel today, I'd like to welcome Gerald Erlob to stage. And Gerald, you can take it from here and introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, so I guess what we found over the last couple of years, this is a nice way to finish off the day. First, thank you all for attending. It's been a great event. But just to kind of recap the day for the last half hour here, it's really valuable to hear some of your peers and what they're experiencing and what they're seeing out there. So we'll pose some questions at these guys, but let me do quick introductions first. Kevin Lanners, IT Manager for Wanzek Construction. Cody Aldinger, IT Manager for KLJ. And Don Redden, Vice President of IT for Ottertail Corporation, which also includes Ottertail Power Company. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for being up here with us. This is great. We'll jump right into the questions. Kevin, sorry, you get to lead us off.
Okay.
So the overlying theme of nVision has been centered on digital transformation. How has your organization begun to transform itself by simply engaging in digital to being a digital enterprise?
Yeah, when I heard this question, I was really excited to answer it because we are going through some significant changes right now at Wanzek. And I'm going to apologize up front. I'm going to use some notes because when Brad told me that this was a 30-minute session, I was afraid I might run over by myself because I do get excited and talk a lot. Plus, I was just told I'm the only thing holding us between alcohol and so I'm going to try and keep this going and stay on topic, all right? But I think for us, the key to becoming more digitized has been a three-step process. There was a McKinsey report that came out a few years back that showed construction was only ahead of hunting when it comes to digitization, which is hard to say. So the first key for us was our executive leadership really taking an interest in automating and innovating within our organization. Our group president came to me and said, I need you to make Wanzek Construction innovative. Our executive vice president for Wanzek directly took our 6 core beliefs and within the last, I think, 18 months, added a 7th called information. And then we brought in some additional resources. When I started at Wanzek 6 years ago, it was me and one other guy in the IT department. We had a few ERP resources who did some reporting, but I think now we're pushing 20, and in 2020, we're expecting to get close to 30. So we really have that executive buy-in. The second key is identifying priorities. When our new VP came in of IS, we sat down. One of the first things we did was identify all of our in-flight projects that touch IT. And we identified 135 of them. That is impossible to do with a team of what I think I had 8 at that time. So with that, we did a few things. Number one, we now have an executive steering committee, and with a VP of IS, we have a seat at the table, which is very critical. But then the final key, number 3, was an execution methodology. And what our new VP and some of the people that he brought with him have brought is an agile methodology to all of our IT projects. So we're not a dev shop, but we're still using DevOps and the agile methodology to do stand-ups every day. We identify our priorities, we work through those things, we're holding each other accountable and sharing that information and making sure that the priorities that we get from the executives are what we're executing on and that we're delivering those solutions to our end users instead of just spinning our wheels and whatever the next shiny object is, we change our focus and go to that. So.
Right. No, thank you for that. It really sounds like that's a top-down approach for your organization, right? It started there and it pushed down to all the different levels and everybody's kind of bought in.
Absolutely, yep.
Cody, how about same question? How have you seen your organization move from just being digital to being more of a digital enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely, thanks. So I think for me, the whole digital transformation buzzword thing is kind of different for everybody, right? So I think we've heard a lot about that today through different sessions. It's kind of, what does it mean to you? So I came into KLJ just over a year and a half ago probably, so not too long, right? But I kind of encourage everybody, even if you're with the company for a long time, is to kind of step back and take a blank slate look at everything, right? So that's what I did coming in, not to kind of dissect where we are today right away, but it's more, in an ideal world, if I was starting over from scratch, what is that end result? What do I want to get to? And then do a gap analysis of where you're at today and how you want to get there. So that's really what I did about a year and a half ago. The network that we had was kind of built up for technologies 5-6 years ago, which doesn't seem that long ago, but in the IT world, obviously that's a long time, right? So we're doing a lot of things right now. We've just implemented WebEx video, WebEx meetings, right? So we've done that. We are in the process of a POC for WebEx calling. We've moved 140 terabytes of data into Azure blob storage and implemented local caching devices through a lot of our sites. So we've gotten that data off of our on-premise environments, moved it into cloud storage, that's a big deal, right? And that's been a hot topic as well in our industry for a few years. But how do you do that in your environment specifically? For us, we're an engineering firm, so we're dealing with a ton of large data sets where it's 2, 3, 4 gig files, right? And they're referencing 6 or 7 or 20 other ones that are the same size. So large data sets. And how do you put that in the cloud and make it efficient, right? So that was a big challenge for us, and I think we've gotten to the point now where through the use of Azure storage and Panzura, which is the product that we're using for these caching devices, I think we've gotten to a good place now in that realm, and that's really helped kind of everything as a whole for us, from stability to disaster recovery planning. For 2020, what we're looking at, along with the calling thing, is implementing SD-WAN, right? So it's kind of simple steps. When you look at, some of you guys are maybe already using SD-WAN or already on some of these technologies. I think digital transformation is taking that next step, whatever that next step is for you. And I think that's something that I'd encourage all of you to do, is take that step back, look at the blank slate ideal picture, and figure out what that next step is for you to get there. And I think that's your digital transformation. So that's what we've done.
Sure, and that's great, right? The overlying theme there, if I was going to label it, is if you're doing IT the old school way, you're going to get passed by here very soon, right? It's like many things in our day-to-day lives, right? If we stick old school too much, eventually we're going to get passed by one way or another, and you're really transforming the way that you're going about doing things there. Don, thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks for calling somebody old school IT, because that's definitely me, or at least started there. So if I think about for my organizations, being from a Fortune 500 company like Microsoft and being a part of an electrical utility, it shows the disparity between what we call digital environments, where you have all digital coming from Microsoft, and you go to a place where they don't even know how to spell digital, is a huge differentiation. So one of the things that I heard these guys talk about was, we're going to move from this digital platform to another digital platform, and we're going to change maybe 1 or 2 little things here. From our perspective in the utility side, we're transforming the way people do their jobs. So that transformation has elements of change management that override or are on top of the actual digital platforms that we envelop within our environments. So, when we think about digital transformation, one of the things that I think about is, did you grow up in a digital environment, or are you moving towards a digital environment? I think those are the 2 philosophical things that you have to cover as an IT guy. I mean, we were born and bred in the digital world with a bunch of 1s and 0s in our dreams as we, slept at night, and all these people that we're trying to help be stewards are not. So as we move from the utility, even from a financial or the enterprise side, we see a lot of change management that helps us bring that digital age or digitization of paper to tablets, or out in the field, a guy has to wait to go to his truck to do a laptop, but now he's got a tablet on his phone or attached to his unit that he can do everything, enter everything right there. Plus he has his maps and et cetera. So I look at it as, for a transformation, you have to get your people ready for that transformation, and then you have to give them the, what are we trying to accomplish here? We need all the information to you, the right information at the right time, so that you can make intelligent decisions out there in the field when you haven't been able to have that data up front.
Big undertaking, for sure.
I love it. It's awesome.
I want to add one thing really quick, because I heard you guys both touch on it, and that's the buy-in from leadership and buy-in from the company as a whole, right? And that's a huge, huge thing. I've been fortunate moving to KLJ that buy-in's there. It sounded like you guys have it, both in your environments, but that's key, right? So you can't just come in and say, I'm going to do, I'm going to do digital transformation, I'm going to do this big thing, just because it's, fun and the thing to do, right? You have to have that buy-in at the leadership level, and you have to communicate it, like you said, and kind of get the buy-in from the people that are using it day in, day out. Without that, you're going to be toast before you even get started. So,
That's right. I'll skip just a little bit because you kind of led us into there. So Cody, you can start this question off. So next question I'm going to throw at you from two different perspectives. First, from the executive level side of things, do you feel that those folks, do they view successful IT departments more as a support function or a revenue generator?
yeah, I think, again, it kind of depends on the company that you're in, right? For us, we're a support provider. We are there, we're an engineering firm. I tell my team all the time, it's our job to make sure that they can do their job, right? So if the systems are down, they're not there making money. The company, from a leadership perspective, is not looking at us saying, you guys need to sell X, Y, Z. But we're definitely there if things aren't working, right? So if we can sit behind the scenes and everything's working smooth and nobody has to, think about IT, we're doing our job. So I think from our perspective, to answer the question directly, we're not looked at to make money, but we are looked at to make sure that we can provide the support so the people that do make the money are able to do it efficiently.
Sure. And second part of that would be looking at it from the employee end user level, right? So I'm sure that would stay consistent with, no, I'm more of a support mechanism for those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Same message, right? We're all kind of centralized on that same goal, right? Where the engineers, the drafters, whatever they are, they have to be able to do their job in order for the company to make money. And they're very well aware. We've got a good support team in place, and they can reach out to us if they have problems. And again, if they're unable to do their job, it's a big deal, right? Because they're billable, right? They're billable time. So even 1 hour of downtime that they're not billable affects the big picture, right? So yeah, it's very much same mindset.
Don, thoughts on that? How about
Yeah, you brought up
from
the
executive
downtime
level?
thing, which we hate to hear in IT. But so just thinking about from an executive perspective, which I am, I can give you, historically, IT has always been a cost center, and it's still, for a majority of businesses out there, it still is a cost center. But what we've tried to transform a little bit is from being a cost center to help enable. And when we enable our business functions, we enable them to make revenue or additional revenue that they weren't able to capture. You mentioned billable hours, huge. If you increase the productivity of an engineer so that you automate stuff or that you make the hurdle lower to get into a certain, because you have a competitive bid now, where you didn't have that before, then you are in essence enabling your company to generate revenue, whether it's lowering expenses or it's actually getting into another part of the another function that you weren't able to do before. So that's how I kind of view it as an executive, is that we may be a cost center, as is accounting and as is human resources, but they're also enablers and they're also stewards of their the particular functions to help enable the companies. Now, if you're in a new market or a niche market, then yes, an information technology like AI, for instance, can help generate revenue. So that's what
For sure. Some of the new types of projects, if you will, that we hear about, right? They're more so evolving around generating revenue, whether it's big data, you had mentioned AI, right? All of these sorts of things. Kevin, what do you see in the construction world?
Well, I think our executives are definitely coming around to see, especially with the additions we've made to the team, that IT, and I guess more specifically for us, the IS group, the Information Services group, can drive efficiencies, can implement technology that does drive the bottom line. They are coming around. I know when I first started, that was not how it was seen. From the end user perspective, I don't know if that's ever going to change. For 99% of the organization, 90% of their interaction is going to be with my support team. So the message I give to my support team is we are that baseline level of trust. When our program managers and our project managers go out to the field or go out to the other leaders and say, we want to implement this technology, it's my support guys that they are associating with IT. So we need to give that white glove service and make sure that we are laying the foundation for when solutions are being put in place, they have a trust that IT knows what they're doing, because when I talked to Joe, the IT tech, he solved my problem in 5 minutes. I think this guy's going to be able to put in some technology that helps me.
Good. Next question, Cody, you can start us off on this one. So we've heard a lot about big data, right? What steps has your organization either undergone or planning to do to stay in front of this?
Yeah, so again, the question, I think, how do you define big data, right? So I kind of alluded to some of our file systems that are, in our world, some big data, right? I think from more of a transactional level, we're starting to dive into the Power BI world and get into some of that business intelligence reporting, right? So we've jumped onto the Office 365 train, quite a while ago, and we're using Power BI, and we're starting to gather more and more data and build company scorecards and build some of the analytics that gives our executive team and some of the rest of the company the tools that they need to be able to dive into that data, right? So we've got a long ways to go, and I don't know that you're ever really done with it, right? But there, for us, we're doing it. I think we're early on in the stages, and there's a ton of opportunity yet. But I think one of our biggest initiatives going forward is probably going to be to the governance side of it, right? So taking that first step before you just go out and start grabbing data and moving it around and pulling it in, taking the time to put the governance in place and put some data dictionaries in place to define what are the key pieces of data that we need to get the information that we're looking for. Security is obviously top of mind. How are we going to secure it? And then communication and planning from the rest of the company standpoint to say, listen, we're going to get these pieces of information. We're going to be looking at these key data points, but we all need to be on the same page. We all need to know that the definition behind that number is the same for everybody. And I think that's a big downfall that a lot of people don't look at in the big data world until it's too late. We're going to, as we get into this Power BI thing a little more and start to expand that out, that's going to be something that's very much top of mind for us. So. Right.
So, Don, you can piggyback off of that, but kind of continuing on the topic of big data. Cody had brought up, the information governance, data classification, right? What are you seeing there in a regulated industry?
Well, with a regulated industry, they tell you what the rules are, and then you abide by those rules. Now, what's difficult with that, because it seems rather fairly easy, right, is that you have this idea that we need more data. And in reality, the more data you get, it becomes either useful to you or it becomes not useful. When it's a pain to back up and it's a pain to secure it, or it's a pain to provide any type of reasoning to it, then it becomes more of a detriment to your system than a positive. So I'm again a big fan of plan for your data ahead of time before you drive it into a system and just store it just because you have it. Right? If you see us from an electric utility perspective, we are probably one of the highest transactional users of data because we have 4-second intervals of everybody's electric data, since the beginning of time for smart meters, right? That's terabytes a week of information that if we were to compile all of it, we would just, it would be unruly. So, if you think of like bigger companies like Excel with their big data and what they're doing with, trying to say we have this big, huge data lake, which, by the way, data lake is just unstructured data, right? And try to build a warehouse, which is providing business logic on top of data, which is important, but us in IT, we can't do that for the business because we don't know what is useful to them and what's not useful. So one of the drivers that I see right now from big data perspective, I hear the buzzword, and then I ask the question, well, what do you want to get out of it? And then when we get that information back from our business units, that can help drive where we collect it, how we structure it, and then where we store it. And being regulated, like the cloud is an opportunity for us that, quite frankly, utilities are a laggard in that. It's not as bad as it used to be, because if you guys would probably remember, storage used to be really expensive. It is not. It is dirt cheap now comparatively to where it was before. But the idea of having a scalable system like the cloud where you can scale independent of your capital investment in storage is a great thing. So, but don't just store data because you can. Store data because it meets some business, policy, or from a regulator perspective, if it meets a policy, et cetera.
Great points in there. Kevin, any other thoughts in regards to big data, information governance? What are you guys seeing?
Well, I guess I learned a new term, data lake, unstructured data. In that case, we have a data ocean. And I think it was one of the things that I did late last year is trying to get my arms around our environment. I had one of my team members kind of map all of the different applications we had and the touch points between them. And what he came up with was not a good thing, I guess. There's like 65 disparate applications and very few touch points between them. That said, with that map in hand, we're looking at where we can build integrations. We are kind of doing something similar where we brought in some people with Power BI experience and pulling analytics and doing things on the data that is structured, but we are just getting our arms around the lake.
It's good. Yeah.
Can I sidetrack this question just a little bit?
Absolutely.
I know you guys are both in
You're driving.
I'm an A&E architecture and engineering firm, right? And I know you guys are similar industries, but one of the big data challenges for us that we're going to deal with pretty quickly here, we're dealing with a little bit now, is drone data, right? So drone data, LiDAR imagery, these guys will go fly a drone and take LiDAR imagery for a mile, right? And they come back with 2 terabytes of data that has to get shared between multiple offices, right? It's a huge issue that I think, a lot of, you guys are in similar industries. Again, I think you guys are probably dealing with it already or going to be soon. That's going to be a big challenge for us that we don't have our head wrapped around yet. But when we talk big data, that has the potential for us to balloon really, really quickly. And I go back to that planning and governance side of that. That's the stage that we're in there to figure out, before we start getting the data in and collecting it too terribly much, what the heck are we going to do with it? And how long are we going to keep it? And how are we going to get it from point A to point B? So I can't stress enough the planning.
Securely, right? Point A to point B securely.
Right. No, you bring that up, though. You can start to think and see where it will start to affect a lot of different industries, right? As they start using a tool like that, and boy, it can grow fast.
Well, I'm going to add on just one more thing to that, so I apologize. But if you think from a regulatory perspective, when we think about transactional information, what it has been historically, and then what it is morphing into, what I call morphing into, we probably have heard of GPDR, which is a big governance for data itself, where they broaden the descriptors for private information. California has released their CCPA regulations. Minnesota and New York will be doing the same. So what we used to think private data was is now changing. So that's another thing when you think about the attribution that you apply to your data. Is it going to be relevant in a year for how you're categorizing it when it used to be non-private, and now that transactional information, i.e. Minnesota has passed legislation that electrical utility data, their transactional stuff, is now private information if you can trace it back to an individual. So that's changed. So that's another thing when you're talking about like the drone data, which is huge amounts of data that generally doesn't have attribution tied to it unless it's specific attribution towards GIS or something like that, or engineering. But once you tie that to an individual or a farmer or a pole location or something like that, it becomes much more. So data governance is not going away. It's going to need to continue to mature as we start getting more and more in our environments.
For sure. Don, quick question for you. So we talked about these data sets. We talked about how they're growing. They're getting more dispersed, right? We see in our departments a need for different skill sets that go along with that, right? What advice would you give to anyone here as far as how do you make yourself more marketable, more valuable in this tight workspace that we're seeing?
That's a good question. One thing you got to do is talk to other people that either been there, done that, or are going to move in that direction. One of the things that I believe that is missing a little bit from this particular area is we don't have like a huge network of people where you can go and ask, hey, what did you guys do here? Unless you know somebody that knew somebody, or we all worked at Microsoft at one time or something like that, right? But, for instance, so what I would tell people is, try and get to a networking piece or a place where you can get education that's relevant. And for instance, I'm spearheading with the formation committee for ISAKA, which is trying to bring that brotherhood, sisterhood of that here to Fargo-Moorhead. So we don't have to go to Minneapolis or Sioux Falls or down even to Omaha, depending on what. So having and it's based on information security, information governance, data governance, auditing, those type of things. It's ISAKA. It's isaka.org. So if you are interested in joining the brotherhood / sisterhood of professionals like you, we've got a sign-up sheet over there at the corner. But that'd be one thing. You got to learn from people that have either been there or are going through it. You can hire a consultant. The consultant will come and they'll give you their qualitative analysis based on their experience. If that experience doesn't match either the region that you're in or the function that you provide, then it's not as relevant as it could be. Sure. So that's what I would suggest is you got to network, and you got to get the certifications that are relevant for your functions.
Yeah, and specifically for ISAKA, I think this audience is probably pretty dispersed geographically, right? So is this just Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, or what do you think that reach for this chapter would be?
It's a 1 mile radius from this place. No, it's not.
And you have to get a tattoo, right?
Yeah. So no, actually, there is a lot of opportunity for. We are a digital world nowadays, so there's a lot of opportunity to participate via WebEx or any other digital solution. But what we're hoping to do is to drive, that centralization of regional specific things. So although you might not be there all the time, you might be there once a year, and you can join, via some other media for the other time. So ISAKA is an international organization. So you would be part of an organization that has broad strokes across the entire world.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks for sharing that. I know that's an important part, and you're really trying to drive that. Cody, parting thoughts for us? Advice?
Yeah, I guess I was just going to piggyback off of.
Open.
Oh, perfect. I won't hold you long. I was just going to piggyback on the same comment on talent, right? The talent that you're looking for to build your team to do the work, right? There's really two key things for me when I'm hiring somebody on my team that I really, really look for, and one is going to be creativity, right? With the amount of change, and as quickly as it is changing, you have to have somebody that can think outside the box and be agile, right? And then the second one is trainability. Depending on what I'm hiring the position for, they maybe have to be super technical in one area, but it's very rare at this point, right? I'm more so looking for somebody that can go out and learn something new, and they're wanting to, and they have that drive to learn whatever it is that we might have to adjust to on the fly, right? Because it changes so fast. And I may hire somebody for a position today that I need today, and a year from now, that change, that need is different. So I have to have some people on my team who are creative and willing to go out and learn something new. And if I can find that, I can train them in almost anything.
That's good. Kevin?
I have only 10 more note cards to make it through, so I apologize. No, but I just wanted to jump on that too, because creativity and flexibility are going to be key. I know we have some Microsoft people in the room, and this is a positive, not a negative. It's going to sound negative, but they make things really hard for us now with the constant changes and the pushing things out. As we move more to the cloud and more to SaaS, and especially in the Microsoft stack, it enables our users to be more self-sufficient, and we need to hire lifelong learners who are willing to stay one step ahead of our users. So I think, that flexibility, the willingness to keep on learning, that you're done with your associate's degree, your bachelor's degree, whatever, you're not done. You got to keep going. It may not be a degree, but you got to keep ahead of our users, because they're as unsavvy as they are sometimes, they can be incredibly savvy and undermining.
For sure. Well, gentlemen, again, I thank you for being up here, sharing your experiences that you're seeing in your individual organizations or in your career, or advice. So thank you for doing that. Again, nice way to wrap up the day.